Once you're creating all the correct files, but you haven't done anything else except to generate your static files, the next step then is to add the specs and set it up so that everything is being produced correctly here. So to create the specs, let me first just make it clear what I'm talking about by specs. If you look back in handlebars in NSFlip, you can see that context includes for static a slug for every instance of a static type, and also specs. Where do they come from? Well, the specs have to be provided, of course, by the user on the side of the NS file, that is to say the code base. All we can do is tell them in our own README that describes everything that they need to have what specs they have to add. What they do is, here is the NS file, and they can create something called specs, right? Specs for each file. Whatever goes in there, that object we will have access to in our code. Let's go ahead and look at this. The way that you can go about doing it is pretty much similar to the way we were looking at standard files. You go in and you look at everything being done and you create whatever you need to allow it to happen automatically. This is the pull file. We should actually close that because we'll get confused. We want to look only at the HBS files inside of static. Where is static? Right here. We can start with the command file, I guess. And we want to go through, and everywhere that we look at something, we want to decide what we need to put in there to make it possible for this to be generated properly. Here we have an import statement that we need for everything. But if we have something that is unique to the particular template that we are using as our sample, then that's an indication that we need to put in some kind of custom field, or that we need to generate it, which is also possible. In this case, get projects and pull code is business logic, so that's pretty clearly going to have to be imported in a custom file. So let's insert a custom imports. Well, we'll call it custom imports because we have other imports above. We could stop right there, or we could just keep going. Let's stop right there on principle. We're new with this. Let's generate that. Once we've generated it, we'll be able to go through the generated results and put back in what we need. Let's look now at the generated output just to make sure that it's being done correctly here. So here is the code. Notice that we have an unused custom start, custom end. Let's put that in, put the code inside of there. That's in pull code. This is going to be correct for pull. It's going to be wrong for push. So if we really wanted to do this right, we should probably open up what we're trying to generate as well. So let me at least make this a little bit simpler by closing what I don't need to have open. We're going to be juggling some files here because we have the NS and the sample NS files. I'm going to just stick with the NS file for now. The README, we don't need it all. Command test, we're not going to work on, we're working right now on command file. So we'll close command test and let's open our command file of the original. So this is the trajectory pull. So in the trajectory pull, we have pull code get projects. You know what? I'm making this much harder than I have to. Let's just stick for right now with the generated pull, and with this, we'll go through putting in everything that we need to put in over here. And then we'll come back again and do it with push. So now comes cool stuff. Now, how do we get it to say pull? Remember that there was a context object called names. Now, whatever the component is, we can get it put into various formats. Singular means the name starting with uppercase, which is useful for a component class. This is an example of that. So what we can say is like this. We can say names. Now we're going to have to deal with a specific thing that we can't get from names, and we're going to have to deal with this. This is a description. Our first thing that we need to put in is description. So let's go back into the NS file. For every command, we're going to have a spec that has description in it. Okay, so what is the value of the description? You have to look and see in the sample from pull would show it. To do this properly, NS is a YAML file. If you don't know what a YAML file is, you can search on it and find out. Usually a YAML file is super easy to work with. It happens to be that the rules for multi-line comments are a little confusing. I think a vertical bar would be best here because that'll save all of the character returns. That's the description of pull. For now, let's just open push, get its description as well, take care of everything at once, as much as possible anyway. Let's look at that NS file here. We need description. Okay, that's for pushing. Now comes the cool thing. If you have a description that's been provided by the person who's using your template, then your template should be able to use it when you simply ask for it, right? You should be able to say specs description. If I did not make a mistake, then that should generate the proper description when the next time we regenerate. So let's look at push. Push all the current. You see, it's correct. And I know that changed because before it would have been pull, because pull is one we use. So you see, this says pull and it says that, and this says push and it says that. So that is the idea. Now this is a problem. You can see that one quirk about handlebars is it's written really for HTML and it automatically will escape certain characters and stuff like that. So we're supposed to be generating something that looks, well, we have to open the original to see that. It's supposed to look like this, project list. And instead we're getting the escape characters. So built in to NS Flip is a helper called safe, which shows the text without escape characters. We're going to have to use that here. Not so common, but it certainly happens. Let's go back to our command file. So we simply insert safe here, regenerate that code, and hopefully it will show up without the problem. Okay, good. You know what? Looking at pull is better because everything is wrong in pull. That's a good trick. In push is rather. Everything is wrong in push if we haven't done it, correct? See, this says pull and it should say push. That's the better file to look at sanity checks and make sure that we're doing what we want to do. By now, you've seen everything that you basically need, almost everything that you need to go through and do this. The only thing that you haven't seen is you may not know handlebars, and that could be relevant because in handlebars, there are certain tricks. You need to know how to use the each command to be able to show a sequence of things. In this case, we're looking at flags. Well, we could have any number of flags. We don't know how many flags we're going to have for each command. So this means that we're going to have to go in and add for our command type another separate call that asks for these. So we'll have to create an object or an array of flags for each command. And so I would say that we should end this video right here already because it's given you the basics for what you need for being able to create a functional minimal static file, and the next step will be to create one that has everything that you need for a fully functional one.